Always a hot topic this time of year. EHD, that's what I'm talking about this week on Full Draw Friday. Before we get into it, don't forget about our partners here on the show. Rodney Hawkins with Midwest Farm and Land and RG Outdoors. He's a land specialist with Midwest Farm and Land. So if you guys are looking to get into the land ownership game or you've got something to sell, you can give him a call, 618-925-3153, and he can get you taken care of on all of that. Plenty of stuff on the market, and he can get you put on the market as well. RG Outdoors is his business where they sell anything from outdoor furniture to hunting blinds and all kinds of stuff in between. Cameras, stands, e-bikes, all kinds of stuff they've got in the shop there. Food plot seed, he's adding stuff all the time, so make sure you look them up. If you're in our area, that's RG Outdoors on Facebook, and he's located in Flora right there. Our other partner, Rax Big Game Supplements. You can go to raxmineral.com and find out more about that. Give the deer what they need, how they want it. If you've got a local dealer, make sure and go check them out. If not, you can order right there online. All kinds of good stuff. Make sure you can use that where you're at. So, EHD, I know I did one last year, an EHD update, because like I said, it's always a hot topic this time of year especially when it's been as dry as it has in the last 3 or 4 years now. It's been dry this time of year. So, a lot of people start to worry about it right now. I hadn't heard a lot about it where we're at until just recently, and I got to thinking I should probably do another update for some people, especially out-of-state guys who maybe don't talk to people around here like we do and kind of don't have the connections to figure out what's going on with that and what to expect. So hopefully this helps you out. But real quick, EHD, if you guys don't know what that is, I believe it's episodic hemorrhagic disease. And what it is, these midge flies, especially on the dry years, live in the mud around water sources, and they get up into the deer's nostrils and eyes and ears and on their antlers, and I'll talk a little bit about that, and they bite them, and they infect them with this disease, and then it's basically it's not necessarily a death sentence because some deer do survive it, but if there's no immunity to it, then it will almost surely kill the deer. Down south where they have this a lot more than we do in the Midwest, especially Illinois, so especially the southeast where it's drier for longer parts of the year, these deer will actually be infected pretty often, and they'll survive it, so they build up immunity, which leads to herd immunity, so they actually see a lot less death from it when it comes to their deer herd. Where we're at, it's not always as widespread. We pretty much have this every year. It happens in some location or another, whether it's been dry or not, but especially when it's dry, we'll have some of this every year. It's just not always real widespread, so you don't see a lot of immunity to it, but you also don't see a lot of big kills from it every year. However, when we do have a drought like this, that's when it's going to be widespread, right? So more specifically, though, when we've had a even more prolonged drought than what we're in right now. I'm not sure exactly the number of days we've gone without good rain. It's been a while now, but up until August, we were really, really wet. So when you look at the years like 2012, it was dry pretty much that whole summer and that whole fall. So the deer really had no chance, along with a lot of other things. So I don't expect this to be a 2012 year for sure, but I'll get into that a little bit. So that said, when we're in a drought, that's when people tend to worry about it a little bit more because of those past years, 2007, 2012, where we've had big droughts and there has been a pretty good kill from it, more widespread. So justifiably so, when it's been dry, people will more often worry about it and they'll start to get concerned. The reason also people worry about it so much is because it seems to disproportionately affect bucks and especially bigger racked bucks. That is because there's a lot of belief that these flies will bite the deer on their antlers when they're in velvet and they can get infected from that. So obviously a deer with more inches of antler would have more surface area for these flies to bite them, where if they get in their nose or on their eyes or in their ears, a lot of times they can get rid of them, get them out of there before they get bit. If they're up on their antlers, it's going to be more likely that they're going to bite them, maybe without them even knowing it. Something interesting about the velvet, the deer can actually feel their antlers when they're in velvet. So it's not to say that they wouldn't feel the flies up there or anything like that, but it is so much more area that they have to worry about that flies can get on there and bite them. So that's why it will affect more bucks, more bigger bucks than small bucks or does. Also, people are going to notice the big bucks that are killed from it more than the does, right? So if there's a doe that's dead, a lot of people don't even really note it. I mean, there's so many does, especially around where we're at, that so many of them die from different things. It's not even really of note. But when your 160-inch buck that you've been watching for a couple years dies, then you really notice and you're thinking, man, what's going on here? But there is something to it also. Like I said, it could be because of the antlers that more bucks are affected by this, and gives people more reason to worry about it, because guys aren't necessarily worried about their doe numbers going down, but when you start seeing your mature bucks die from this kind of stuff, then that's when you really start to worry. But right now, like I said, I haven't heard of a ton of it, especially in Southern Illinois. And on the Facebook groups I'm in throughout Illinois, different groups, I haven't seen a bunch of it either. I've seen some people asking about it, of course, because it's that time of year, but haven't been a lot of cases. I haven't seen a lot of pictures of it. However, within like the last week and a half, I have heard some people talking about it in the sense that they're finding deer that are dead. So handful of farmers, a few guys that I know that hunt around us, and different people that I've talked to, they're starting to see a few or hear of a few here and there, but it still doesn't seem to be a ton of deer. There are people finding some, like I said, but it doesn't seem to be a whole bunch yet. So the question isn't if we got hit, it's how widespread and how bad it is. And again, that's every year. It's pretty much every year we're going to see some of this somewhere, and that's always the question, not if we got it, but how widespread it is and how bad is it. Right now, it doesn't seem to be incredibly widespread. It doesn't seem to be really bad. I think the wet spring has helped a bunch with that, even though we're dry now. As much rain as we got really throughout the summer too. So through the spring and then up until, like I said, basically the end of July, it was really, really wet. And I think that helped not only fill these water holes, a lot of places were up. I mean, water was way up. Now it's down in a lot of places, of course, but there was a lot more water available for these deer to go and get what they needed, and a lot less chance for these midge-flies to populate those areas because it wasn't the habitat that they need. So I think that has helped a bunch on that side of it. Also, it's made for more healthier deer. So if they are infected, the healthier they are, the more likely they are to fight off that infection and actually build some immunity from it rather than die from it. Obviously, a healthy deer can die from it just the same as a sick one can. But I think overall, with as green of a spring as we had and summer, there's more healthy deer on average, so there's going to be less of them die from this kind of stuff, if that makes sense. Also, talked about bucks, their velvet, and their antlers being a place to be bit and infected. A lot of the bucks that I've been seeing from guys on camera are starting to shed their velvet, so that's a good thing. When their velvet's gone, there's a lot less place for them to be infected, a lot less chance for them to get it, a lot less chance for them to die. So if they've made it this far and they shed their velvet, that's not to say they're out of the woods, no pun intended, but they definitely have a higher likelihood of making it at this point if they're hard-horned than when they were in velvet. I wouldn't worry necessarily. A lot of the questions I will get about this personally, because people know we do this and we talk to people and we have our consulting and whatnot. So they'll send me messages and just ask what we've been seeing, especially out-of-state guys, to kind of get a feel for what's going around. But they'll base it a lot of times off of the action on their trail cameras. So maybe they were seeing quite a few bucks in the last few weeks, and now they really slowed down. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're all dead, right? A lot of times we kind of jump to conclusions in the worst-case scenario and think, oh my gosh, all the deer are dead. That's not necessarily always the case when you're seeing less action on your cameras, because you got to think, as dry as it is and as hot as it is, even if it's not killing the deer, they're going to be a lot less likely to get up and move. I don't remember if it was last year or 2 years ago. I believe it was 2 years ago. We had basically same conditions throughout the fall or late summer and into the fall where it was really dry. We didn't see a big kill from it, but there was a lot less movement, especially early season, and I think that's because the deer just didn't feel as good because we didn't have those rains and they weren't as healthy. So it could be something like that. It could just be that it's super hot right now, especially for the middle of September, like it's 90 degrees today, I think, and the deer just aren't moving as much. So could it be a EHD? Could your bucks be dead and that's why you're not getting pictures of them anymore? Absolutely. It also could be because they're just not moving a whole bunch because it's hot. The other thing, going back to what I just talked about, they're shedding their velvet. So once those bucks start to shed their velvet, their testosterone's rising, they're starting to make that fall shift. A lot of times that will happen between the middle of September and between the middle of October, especially depending on the year. So if they're shedding velvet, they're more likely to be moving off. So you may have got pictures of them all summer, but now is just the time when they're in that shift too. So keep that in mind if you're worried about this because of your trail cameras. At this point, I wouldn't be too bummed about it unless you're like physically finding dead bucks. So if it's just your trail cameras, if it's just you're seeing pictures on Facebook of dead deer or hearing people talking about it, I wouldn't get too concerned unless you're actually the one out there physically finding these bucks on your property, or a landowner has told you that they found some dead deer, something to that effect. It just doesn't seem like it's got to the point where you really need to worry about it a whole bunch yet unless you're in that spot. Also, even if it does hit as bad as it did in 2012, which was horrible, that was one of the worst of my lifetime, probably the worst of my lifetime, the worst EHD kill, and it wiped out generations of bucks, right? Even if it got that bad, is it going to suck? Yes. Will there be less mature bucks and big racked bucks around for a few years? Yes. But you can still go out, enjoy your time in the woods, and have good hunts. You may just have to adjust your expectations a little bit. The best quote I ever heard on this was from, I think it was Mark Drury. Someone was talking to him, and they asked him what he does when EHD or something wipes out all of his 5- and 6-year-old bucks, and his response was, well, that's easy. I just shoot 4-year-olds. So you may have to just adjust your expectations. You can still go out there and have a good hunt, even if it gets just as bad as you can possibly imagine with this EHD or anything else. Try to keep a good attitude and know that it will get better again. That was horrible, like I said, in 2012, but 4 or 5 years later, it got really good again. It started getting really good again, and I think we're in as good a spot as we've been in a long time when it comes to big bucks. So keep all that in mind. Even if it does get that bad, even if it's on your farm hitting you that hard, try to still go out there and have a good season. Yeah, you may not see as many bucks. You're probably definitely not going to see as many big bucks if it hits you hard, but you can still have a good year and enjoy hunting for what it is. Just adjust your expectations a little bit. I don't think there's a lot of cause for concern right now. It seems to be very pocketed like most years. And that's basically, it's not real comforting though if you're the one that's dealing with it, right? It's kind of like statistics on shark attacks. So statistics would tell you that you're very unlikely to be attacked by a shark. However, the guy in the jaws of the great white doesn't really care about those statistics. So if you're the guy whose farm's getting hammered by EHD right now, you don't really care that everybody else hasn't really seen it or it's not that widespread. So I understand that. If you're one of those guys out there, man, I feel for you. That is about as bad as it can get as far as losing those deer to that, aside from something we talked about on Monday, this coming Monday episode, poaching. It's one of the worst things that can happen if you're like trying to grow big deer and you're trying to hunt mature bucks. Like that can really put a damper on things. But that said, I don't think a lot of people are going to be dealing with that this year. And that could change. We're really going to know more over the next few weeks of how hard we actually got hit across the state throughout the Midwest. Like I know Ohio got hammered this year, but I don't talk to a lot of people that hunt Ohio. So that's why I'm kind of focused on Illinois specifically, because that's where the people, you know, in a little bit of southeast Missouri, places like that. Like I can speak to that a little better because I talk to people that hunt those states and those areas. So yes, there are parts of the country that have been hit harder than others, but I'm just talking about right where we're at. We're really going to find out over the next few weeks how hard we're actually going to get hit, because more people are going to be out in the woods as they're getting ready for the season, setting cameras, setting stands, things like that, even getting into the season and hunting. And that's when they're going to find these dead bucks, right? So you might see more and more pictures of them. We'll really know probably by mid-October how bad we actually got hit, and especially if that drought continues. But right now, it doesn't appear to be catastrophic by any stretch, and hopefully that doesn't change. So, again, I don't think there's any reason to panic right now, even if you're seeing some stuff about it on social media. Just stay calm and wait and be a little bit patient and see what you see, and go walk your farm if you think you need to and see if there's any dead deer laying around or anything like that. And then, obviously, at that point, you can be concerned about it. The problem with worrying about it is there's not a lot we can do about EHD right now. There's been some research done on it. I feel like there should be more, but like there's a few things. There's some water treatment stuff that you can use. I don't know. I'm sure that stuff helps a little bit. I don't know how much it actually helps. And if you're treating ponds on your property, if the deer goes and drinks from the neighbor's place that isn't treating, there's always that chance. So it's something that you can do, and you can feel like you're doing as much as you can. You can try to give minerals to your deer. You can try to plant food plots for them and keep them as healthy as possible. like in my opinion, that's the best thing you can do is just try to keep them as healthy as you possibly can. So if they do get infected, they have a better chance to fight it off. But ultimately, there's not a lot you can do about it. If we got these dry years and these midge flies are out there and there's an abundance of them and deer got to go drink at some point, when it happens, it happens. So it's understandably why people worry about it. But I think right now, as it sits on September 12th, in Illinois at least, more specifically Southern Illinois, I don't think there's any reason to panic. We'll find out. Like I said, hopefully that doesn't change over the next few weeks. So that's all I got for you guys this week. Appreciate you tuning in. If you're on YouTube, please like, subscribe, comment. Let us know if you guys have seen anything. What's been going on your farm? Update the people that way too. We'd love to hear from you. And we'll catch you guys on Monday.